I have a love of curiosity. It's the foundation of a lot of things. It's also the foundation of accountability. So I think it's really important that we recognize, number one, that anything we want to be good at, we have to practice. And so how do we practice these things? So I love taking a curiosity walk, going out and finding at least, or while I'm in the world, finding at least one thing that I have quote unquote known about my whole life or don't know anything about, and finding either 3 new facts or 3 facts about it. And I do this regularly to help, and it has turned into amazing metaphors inside of my kingdom.
Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. We're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life. We want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. In this episode, I get to speak with Shana Francesca. She is a keynote speaker, consultant, workshop facilitator, and scholar of intentional and ethical leadership and living. She is the founder and CEO of Consonant LLC. Shana's has been interviewed on more than 60 podcasts worldwide and has been published in Medium, Authority Magazine, and Shout Out LA, and Emotional Intelligence Magazine and Emerge Magazine. Shana has worked with clients like the Council for Brain Injury, the Boys and Girls Club, and the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. Shana believes our present and future are transformed when we infuse our lives with intention, design our lives, and realize the power in continually practicing curiosity, respect, and accountability. Join us as Shana reflects on her past, delves into the importance of connection and community, and shares insights on navigating through life's trials with resilience and grace.
Shana, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Shana, what I'd like to jump into in the beginning of the episode is to get a little origin story laid out. And what this does, it connects with the audience and tells them, hey, this is where I came from. This is what enabled me to be where I am today. And then also motivates us to go to the next level. So tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born into an abusive household and raised inside of an evangelical Christian cult. And so I learned really early on, I felt I knew what it was like to grow up inside of an environment in which your personhood is not honored, in which you are punished for being yourself, in which there is no allotment or allowment or empowerment of your curiosity. There's no conveyance of respect, and there's no space for accountability for the people who are causing you harm. And so those, no shock that through my life, I figured out that those are the things that were mostly missing from my life, and really drove me to study and to understand the power of those things and how investing in those things transformed my life and how it's transformed my relationship with my family members, the ones that I'm still in contact with. And it's become the basis of my work, because when you experience the extreme, because really what I experienced was the extreme of what already exists in our society at large, right? We see levels of privilege, we see lack of respect, we see lack of curiosity, which is driving our disconnection, driving systems of oppression, driving this kind of domination and hoarding of wealth. And investing in my work became my way of making sense of what I experienced growing up. But having experienced what I did growing up, it was just a very extreme version of what already exists in the world, and I needed to make sense of it. Essentially, my work is my healing.
That's so true, because when you start to heal or start to put the time to work on yourself, I think it shows that you care more about what people think than what we think. And it obviously starts working when you remove those external forces that are impacting our behaviors or impacting who we are.
Yeah, there has to be a delicate balance of wanting to be connected to the people around you while not holding yourself to their expectations, while setting boundaries around your own desires for your life, while also understanding that we are deeply dependent on one another and all life. So it's an and. It's a recognition that the world does not exist as this or that. The world exists in a series of ands. And we are raised to believe that the world exists as or, but it doesn't.
Oh,
And when we live in a world of or, we live in a world of separation. When we live in a world of and, we live in a world of community.
I love that so much. And we can see that throughout the world right now, because entire world is in the state of or this or that, but that's not the case.
Yeah, that drives their ability to say one of these things gets to exist, not both. And so if only one of these things gets to exist, then it's excusable to eliminate the other, which is never okay.
Never okay. And it hits
doesn't matter who you're
home.
othering. Doesn't matter who you're othering. Doesn't matter. It's a matter of us recognizing this is a world of, and we need to establish it as a world of and, not or.
Amen. Amen. I love it. I love that so much. Thank you so much for bringing forth that simple concept. This is a world of and what else? And who else? And how can we? I love that so much. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. When we, and I think it's a matter of recognizing that when we live in a world of and, then we can live in reciprocity with not just one another, but the entire living world, because our life depends on the entire living world, not just other human beings. Right?
It does.
And when we can honor all life the way that we are supposed to honor all human beings, it becomes a very different thing. And then we can look at the world in a different way. And we can say, how do I give and take in equal measure? Emphasis on the giving, because we haven't been taught that giving part. We haven't been taught how to give to the natural world around us. By the way, we're nature. We are not separate from nature. We are nature. We are part of the living world. And we weren't taught that either, which is by disconnecting us from that reality, it makes it easier for us to exploit the living world and in return for us to be exploited, by the way. Like we're then separated from ourselves. We're separated from that which gives us life. Then we're also separated from, it's a series. Like you have to, again, it's a world of and. You have to recognize all of these things. Once you start stripping away our connection to all of these things, it makes it easier to make it a world of or.
Yeah. What's interesting is for some time, I've been saying that we are not of this world. We are aliens on this world. But now that you mentioned that we are part of this nature, it actually reminds me that when God created Adam, he used clay. Where did he get the clay from? It was probably from this earth.
It was.
Because that's crazy how deep that connection goes. Because even though we were created on a different realm and then put on this earth to worship God, and I don't mean to go on a different tangent, but it makes a connection for me in my mind.
Yeah, but I think it's powerful that in the story of creation, that God created man on earth.
Yeah.
God didn't create man in heaven and then bring him to earth. God created life on earth, and he created it all together within a very small period of time.
Right.
In that creation story. So that's the powerful thing that I think people forget.
Yeah.
And there doesn't need to be any, man was created to be stewards of all life, not to be eradicating life because of exploitation, because you will eradicate your own life. Like that's what we're watching right now. You will eradicate your own life if you if you exterminate through overuse of resources, all of the other life that your life depends on.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's going deep really fast. I've had the map of the world up on my computer for some time, and this is the world oil map. Because that's the problem that we're facing. It's because they want access to resources. There's all of these things. If you look throughout our history, it's, hey, I want to hoard this, and who can I eliminate to get access to it all for myself? It's
what government can I destabilize? What democratically elected government can I destabilize? What group of people can I exploit? Or what group of people do I have to eliminate to gain access to those resources? And that is happening in a variety of places in this world at this exact moment while we are speaking.
Yes.
Right? In this exact moment. And governments and the people trying to do the exploiting will try to make it about anything other
Oh,
than the
yes.
fact that they want to gain access to those resources. And we
Yes.
have to be careful to recognize that that's propaganda. And
Yes.
it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter their reason.
Mm-mm.
Eliminating people's lives or destroying the
not.
earth to gain access to resources is never okay. I
Never.
heard somebody say a couple weeks ago, they're like, we have plenty of resources that we could be recycling. We could have 100% recycling programs. We could be actually, instead of mining metals in the earth that is very dangerous and harmful to people, we could be mining our landfills that are full of things
The same,
that could be
same
correct.
stuff.
We could reuse those resources, right?
Yeah.
There are a variety of things that we could be doing if we examined the options rather than deciding that the easiest way
Yeah.
is to eliminate life.
It's crazy.
If we take that off the table, there's a world of options available to us.
And I was watching this other video where this lady in Nigeria created this company because the tires, like recycle old tires, is a big problem. Tire fires
Okay.
are
Yes.
it's
yes.
huge.
Oh,
So
they're very
she built this
toxic.
company.
Yeah.
They're very toxic. So she built this company around recycling tires. So she built a system where they can process about 150 tires per hour or something like that, or per day.
Wow.
And these tire materials then converted into tiles for playgrounds because it's a really durable material. But because there's so much stuff that's put into tires with nylon and metals and whatnot, so she built a system around, and she's hoping to go into more places because she's in Nigeria, which is a third world country. But to be able to have those kind of resources available just makes it so much easier, because it's crazy how easily we take things and we destroy them.
I love that story because I think it's really important that we recognize that just because people exist within a country that does not have running water and does not have access to some of the things that we have access to, which, by the way, our infrastructure is absolutely breaking down and is at nearly third world standards in this country, right? So like, we don't need to be wagging our finger in anybody else's face. We still have Flint, right? We still have many cities in this country who don't have access to clean drinking water.
Yes, it's so true.
But it's really important that we recognize that people who have lived in extraordinary circumstances with very little support have exceptional amounts of genius.
Yes.
Because they have had to figure out on their own how to transform their environment in order to try to make it much more livable and humane, right? Because often these places are the places that we here in the United States dump are no longer wanted resources.
Right. Yeah.
And we are okay with the fact that we now ship all of our plastic to Malaysia, and that's burned, and those people are dying from cancer and lung disorders and so on and so forth, as long as we don't see it, right? We ship our tires to, and when we look around the world at the aftermath of our consumption and our lack of desire to be accountable for the reuse of and the giving new life to the resources we are no longer using and consuming at rates that are absolutely unnecessary. We can look to people who have been harmed by our consumption for the answers to those questions of what do we do with these resources we no longer have use for in their current state, and how do we give them a new life so that we are no longer raping the world and harming with the byproduct of our consumption.
It's insane, man. So currently you are a keynote speaker, you're a consultant, you facilitate workshops. And it's called International Ethical Leadership in Living. So this is really in the realm of what you are an expert in, which is amazing. I went in that direction not knowing, but I knew that there was a connection that would make.
Yeah, and I'm a scholar of intentional and ethical leadership and living. And the thing is that studying and learning and trying to understand what it is to be an intentional and ethical human in this world is something I had to investigate entirely on my own because I had no model for it. And so the books that I read, the books that I still read, I typically read 3 books a week.
Right.
from a variety of topics, including fiction. By the way, fiction is much more important than people recognize it to be because it helps to connect us to what's possible. It connects to our
Yeah.
imagination and our creativity. And then it helps to connect us to ways in which we could innovate the world in which we live and reimagine the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
But I've spent more than a decade, arguably most of my life, trying to figure out what it is to be an intentional and ethical human. And along the way, I thought everybody else already knew how to do these things. I just thought my world was so terrible, and it was
Yeah.
just the world I lived in. And then I traveled around and experienced the world from a variety of places. And I was like, no, actually, this seems to be a problem that so many millions and millions and maybe billions of people
Yeah.
are experiencing around the world. And and so as I began to share these conversations, people were like, you need to be having these conversations on a microphone.
Yes.
Because I wish everyone was recording this right now. And I'm like, really? Okay. I didn't know it was valuable to everyone else. And that's the funny thing about who we are is we
Mm,
take for granted who we are and we assume everybody else knows the things we know. But
yeah.
they don't. They
They
don't.
don't.
They
Mm-mm.
don't. They know what they know. And there might be overlap, but that doesn't mean it's
Yes.
exactly the same, right? And that's the
Agreed.
beautiful thing about living in community with one another is that what we know complements one another
Absolutely.
because we can't know everything and we shouldn't even want to. That's where we build in community is I want to dive into and get to know the world around me and help myself to show up ethically in the world, causing the least harm possible and being accountable when I do cause harm.
Mm.
And then I want to live in community with other people so they help me expand my worldview and challenge the ways that I perceive the world currently.
Man, that's amazing. Because when we speak from our experience, we connect with people that have just a teeny bit of in their lives as well. And oh my
Yeah.
God, more people need to hear that. So amazing
Yeah.
that you spent that time and energy to get the word out and authoring magazines and
Yeah.
shotcuts. That's totally amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And I appreciate people like yourself who have podcasts and have built audiences and invite me to share what I'm doing with your
Mm,
audience.
absolutely. Talk to us about the Council for Brain Injury and how they work in this space and how your experience has been with them, like working with them.
Yeah, the Council for Brain Injury works with individuals who have experienced traumatic brain injury and are exploring what it is to live in the world as they are currently and as they
Mm,
move through their healing and knowing that their life will never, may never, not will never, but may never
mhm.
return to exactly how it was before for a variety of reasons, whether it be the injury itself or how the injury was occurred and so on and so forth. And
So are
so
these injuries physical or
physical.
okay?
Traumatic brain injury is physical.
Mm,
And what comes of it is a variety of ways that it manifests in your life that aren't necessarily just physical. And I have a friend who went through this and experienced this firsthand, and it was really hard. The first 2 years for her was really hard. So when the Council for Brain Injury reached out to me, I was like, oh, absolutely. I'd love to be part of this conversation. So we did a workshop in which I was talking with their clientele, the people they work with, and
mm,
talking about how do we build community? How do we build support around ourselves? How do we learn to be okay with asking for help? How do we not make ourselves less than for asking for help?
mm,
And just recognize that maybe people around you are going to judge you because your life looks different, but that's their own insecurity. And I know that really hurts and that's painful, but there's opportunity for new people to come into your life, new
yeah.
avenues of support. That's not to discount the fact that it's not hard. And that's not to discount the fact that it shouldn't be that way, that we as a
Mm,
society, when someone needs support, should show up and should be able to show up and have the resources to show up, both mentally, physically, with our time, so on and so forth. But by creating communities of mutual aid and mutual support around ourselves and sharing resources, it becomes a less lonely thing.
yeah. It does.
And yeah, and as somebody who hasn't been through that but does understand the power of community, it was an interesting conversation for me to navigate because, again, it's an and, right? I have to acknowledge that oftentimes as a society, we have a tendency to other people who don't show up in the world as able-bodied the way
Mm,
that we expect them to anymore. And that's deeply harmful.
yeah.
And so you have to acknowledge that and encourage people to find communities of support and to be able to ask for help, and being part of the Council for Brain Injury that already is helping them to find support in being able to share their stories with one another, and then gives them the opportunity to be able to share resources
I love it.
that way. Yeah.
And that's so inspirational because the more support, the more people there are like yourself getting the message out, the better it is for those that don't have the information. I think that's one of the reasons I got into podcasting was like, hey, I want to share my story around, hey, how to actually do a podcast. Right? So that was my little bit of journey. Okay, I want to do this for a while. And then just to start talking about it on what I experienced. But then I was like, my stories are still, I'm still working on my own story. Like, what if
We
I,
always are.
right? So how about I interview others? So after interviewing 200, or sorry, almost 400 people, guests on the podcast, it's enabled me to see the stories and see that little, what the flow of, hey, this is how a story is told, or this is how, what makes sense and what inspires people and brings them into your world.
Yeah.
But then I think what's really important is what you shared earlier is to be able to be vulnerable. Right? When we're vulnerable, when we open up, I think that's when people can connect heart to heart. Oh my God, there's a message there. There's something that I can do about it, or something that I can contribute.
Yeah, exactly. Telling our stories is a really powerful thing. It's in telling our stories and sharing our stories with one another, right? So it's about sharing our story and taking in other stories and creating safe space, right, for other people to be able to share their stories. In doing that, we learn how deeply we are connected and that there is more that connects us than separates us, right? It doesn't matter if we're different religions, different ethnic backgrounds, different skin colors, different socioeconomic statuses. We're still all human at the end of the day. And many of our fears are much the same.
They are the same.
And so it's a matter of when we can recognize that, we can come together, we can support one another, we can live in harmony with one another. And that doesn't mean living in harmony with one another doesn't mean we have to agree with everything each other does, but part of living in harmony is accountability, respect, and curiosity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a beautiful thing. And it's almost like when you go to the grocery store, two competing brands next to each other. Right? They're not fighting. They're like, hey, you can have this, or you can and you can have this too, and you can have this too. So it's not nor. And when people talk about, and it's on everything, right? BMW versus another brand, or Tesla versus another brand, but it's not. It's all those cars are on the road together, heading in the same directions. That should show us that, hey, we are all the same. We need to have room and tolerances for everything.
Yeah, it's more than tolerance. It's just recognition that the way we see the world is only so the way we perceive the world exists only for us. Our perception of the world exists only for us. No one else perceives the world the way we do. And so for us to think that everyone else has to or should hold our opinions, and the people we spend time with, all of them should see the world the same way, is to force people to show up in a very sterilized way. And that is inhumane. It is important that we recognize that we can simply sit with the fact that we disagree or we don't see the world the same way. And that doesn't mean, because I hear people say, oh, you don't believe in God, or you're going to go to hell, that's your belief system. You don't get to put that on someone else. You don't get to use hell as a tool for hate and for othering and for separation and for violence. Words are also violence against someone else. God's greatest commandment in the Bible is that we need to love one another. That's the greatest commandment. So if we aren't paying attention to that first, and we are using our words as violence against someone else, in what way are you demonstrating love? You aren't.
Yep. You're not.
Right? You're not. So hate never won anyone over. Nastiness never won anybody over. And quite frankly, you have to ask yourself why you need to win people over. Why you can't just live your life your way. Just be, and let other people be as well.
I love that. Shana, this has been very inspirational, very deep. Thank you so much. Let's take a
Yeah.
quick break. And when we get back, you've got 3 hacks for our audience to share.
Yeah.
Looking for the ultimate live streaming and video production studio? Discover Ecamm Live, exclusively built for Mac. It's the leading solution for podcasting, webinars, live streaming, and more. Elevate your content creation game and bring your ideas to life with Ecamm Live. Head on over to hacksandhobbies.com/ecamm and download your studio today. Start creating with Ecamm Live and elevate your audience engagement. Download now from hacksandhobbies.com/ecamm or tap on the link in the show notes.
Hey guys, welcome back. We've been talking with Shana Francesca, and it's been a very amazing conversation because we're not just talking about being, but we're talking about how to be the best version of yourself, and that there is room in this world for everyone to coexist in peace with each other. But friend Shana, you got 3 hacks for us. Let's
Yeah.
dig in.
Yeah. So I have a love of curiosity. It's the foundation of a lot of things. It's also the foundation of accountability. So I think it's really important that we recognize, number one, that anything we want to be good at, we have to practice. And so how do we practice these things? So I love taking a curiosity walk, going out and finding at least, or while I'm in the world, finding at least one thing that I have quote unquote known about my whole life or don't know anything about, and finding either 3 new facts or 3 facts about it. And I do this regularly to help, and it has turned into amazing metaphors inside of my keynotes. But for others, it turns into incredible innovation. So that's one. For 2, for business owners and leaders, I challenge them to transform that into a hack into building community inside their organization, which would be to walk the halls and meet your people. Spend time with your people, understand that they carry answers that will drive forward profitability and innovation. And hack number 3 is to educate yourself. That's a deep part of curiosity. Spend time with books, get a library card. You can buy books as well, but I love the sense of going to the library and finding your way to a specific topic and seeing where it leads you and talking to the librarian and doing so from a place of community, right? There's a sense of community there, of community learning and understanding. So look for ways to build community in your life. Look for ways to educate yourself and not do it on your own. I also have a book club, right? So there's lots of ways that I support in my life building community around my self-education.
Yeah, I love those. Number 1, curiosity walk, find 3 new facts or 3 facts about something that you don't know. And for CEOs, transform that curiosity walks by walking the halls and meet the people. And if you're working remotely, just randomly select a name from your chat list and hey, I haven't talked to this person in a while. Let's chat with them.
Get to know your people.
Yeah, I love that. And then educate yourself, delve into books and learn new topics or even dive deeper. Like for example, yesterday, I'm driving my kid to school and I was like, how long am I waiting on the red light? If there was no red lights, I'd probably be there a lot sooner. So I was like, I wonder if there's a research done on how long people wait at red lights.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. It's around 2 days worth of waiting at red lights in a year for an average person.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, that's insane. Like they've done the studies and how it's different for urban versus city driving and whatnot. It's crazy.
Yeah. But education, to your point though, education also helps us to connect to one another, right? So the thing that connects each one of those hacks is helping us connect to the living world and the people around us, right? Hack number 1 is the living world. Hack number 2 is the people that we work with and support and help us to have a company in the first place. And hack number 3 is listening to the stories of people who we don't necessarily know, and we don't have access to their lives, but we do have access to their lives through their written words.
Yeah. Man, I love that. Love that analogy. I love that. Connecting with people and nature in ways one way more than another. All right. Let's jump into the last segment of the podcast.
Sure.
I'd like to ask some fun questions to my guests.
Okay. Go for
Number
it.
1, exploring uncharted territories. Name a hobby you've always wanted to dive into, but haven't yet, and why?
Interesting. I have experienced a lot of things in my life. I was a semi-professional salsa dancer for 4 years. I've gone kayaking and whitewater rafting and a whole bunch of different things. One dance that I haven't yet learned that I want to learn is the tango and also the paso doble. So those are like on my list of things to learn. Dancing is a really cool way to spend time with people.
I love it. I love it. Rewinding time, what childhood dream job did you aspire to, and how does it contrast with your current career?
I wanted to be a dancer. So I decided that I'm 6'1". No one can necessarily tell that through the camera, but I'm 6'1". Being a ballet dancer was removed from possibility for me from a very young age. But I did decide to connect with my body and connect with the world around me through dance. And then that differs because, yes, I'm still performing. It's still connected to that, but just in a different way.
Nice. Love it. Next up, from screen to life, can you share a movie or TV show that entertains you and offers a lesson that resonates with your life or career journey?
Yeah. So my favorite movie growing up was Dirty Dancing. No shock, I became a semi-professional salsa dancer. Yeah. But the thing that I really appreciated about that movie was, the main character, Baby's character, was so kind and curious. And when she was held accountable, at first she didn't respond so great. And then she did, right? She took that time to learn. I think there's a lot more levels of interesting in that storyline than I think necessarily people immediately give it credit for.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of exploration of what it looks like to live in community with one another and to show up and support one another and to have compassion.
Love that. That's so true. All right, next up, imagining yourself on the silver screen. If you could embody a character from any movie, who would it be? And how does this character's journey mirror or contrast with your own?
Interesting. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know that there are too many characters I've seen embodied that honestly portray the world I wish existed. So I don't know the answer to that question. Is that okay?
That's totally fine.
Yeah, totally fine. I don't know.
All right, next up, navigating through the world of superheroes. Who's your favorite, and is there a particular trait they possess that you wish to embody?
I'm a big fan of Wonder Woman. The thing that I love about the character of Wonder Woman is that she does not do it all. And I think people miss that. She's not a wife and she's not a mother, but right. But also I think it's important to challenge the idea, because I think it's important to challenge the idea that women have to be everything in order to actually be seen as valuable. But I also don't really invest in the idea of superheroes too much as far as they currently or have existed in the past. They were typically all white people. And that kind of feeds a very specific narrative of white saviorism and also that there's this lonely leader at the top who has to come in and save everything, which I think is very far from the truth.
It's very far from the truth. So true.
Yeah.
You got to work together. Together.
And working together, we actually would solve a heck of a lot of problems.
So much more.
Yeah.
All right, last up. If your career or personal journey was a board game, which one would it be and why?
You remember the Game of Life?
Or
Stratego? I don't know. I played a lot of different board games as a kid, but I think maybe it's Stratego because I'm consistently trying to avoid the bombs, but also trying to learn and strategically move through the world and learn how to connect with people and learn how to read the world around me and understand my part in it and make sure that I'm not causing harm to it. So it's about intentionally moving through the world, and that's what Stratego is about.
Shana, thank you so much for your time and energy, your wisdom, and your insights into this conversation. I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll be sure to include all of the links for people to reach you in the show notes. What's the best place for people that you would like them to go to?
Yeah, head to my website. There's lots of information there about me as a speaker. There's articles that I've written that people can access. And there's obviously the way to connect with me is there as well. So it's a hub for everything.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Shana. Appreciate your time again. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Hacks and Hobbies. You can find additional information on the guest today on their website, hacksandhobbies.com. Please feel free to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on upcoming interviews with amazing guests.